It's Gilliangladrag. It's Gilliangladrag. It's Gilliangladrag Fluff-a-torium. 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 Show.
Gilliangladrag. Gilliangladrag. What's that?
A gong.
Why have we got a gong?
I was just introducing you.
With a gong?
I thought you could come in with a bang or a gong, one or the other.
Right, Bowie, off you go. Oh, I didn't give you your treat, Bowie. Sorry, I was distracted by the gong. Are you, you dressed in a loincloth back there with the gong?
Gillian, you know I always do this in a loincloth.
I
why
feel like I'm off centre. Am I?
I don't know.
Which
Are you
way?
off centre?
I don't know. I need to be in front of my felting anyway.
Well, you're fine.
Am I good for Instagram?
Well, you can see from there, can't you? Because you've got little markers on your screen, so you can see.
Oh,
from
yes, I have. Look, I'm wearing my Strathcona jumper. It's
You're
the new...
going to get really hot.
I am really hot already. Okay. I'm just explaining that I might look a little dewy. Okay. I put a top on underneath just in case I do need to whip this off.
Well, do
Yeah, 'cause-
remember that your microphone's attached to it.
Oh yeah, that's true actually. I can't
So
whip
you
it off.
can't take it off.
So it's 12 degrees today here in the UK and feeling a little bit more spring-like. But you know, and actually, to be honest, I wasn't hot in it. I didn't put my coat on over the top of it, but I wasn't hot in this on the way here. It's just in the studio here. It's just with all the lights and all the machinery. It's quite warm. Anyway, hello. I hope you're all well. And I'm sorry we had a week off last weekend. It was Valentine's weekend, and I thought, you know, it'd be a lovely, lovely thing to have a weekend off with my lovely husband, who then came down with man flu and thought it was COVID.
I didn't think it was COVID.
Yes,
everybody,
you did.
No,
Yes,
everybody,
you
no,
did.
no.
Anyway, went for a COVID test, wasn't COVID, then miraculously felt quite a lot better. I'm saying nothing more. Anyway, so Valentine's Day, that was that, wasn't it, Christopher?
Yes.
And but we did have a lovely weekend off apart from that. So, you know, anyway, I hope you all did as well. And today I'm going to show you a little bit more about flat wet felting. So I don't want there to be any confusion here. This is about flat flowers, okay? I'm not making 3D flowers as per my book, Felting Fabulous Flowers, okay? That is different, my friends. Today I'm doing flat stuff. So I'm doing flowers that you would see perhaps on the front of a cushion or a bag, okay? Like this little clutch bag I've made, or like this bag front that I've made. Well, there's another little bag I've made, quite a few of those in fact. I think there's a cushion in the cabinet behind me, over there. So this is what I'm going to show you about how to make romantic, voluminous blooms. That's what it's all about, okay? Feel free to ask questions as I go along. Oh, so I'm covering up my microphone. Feel free to ask questions as I go along, and I'm going to be demonstrating mostly how to lay the wool tops out. So it's almost like how to paint with the wool tops, okay? So I'm not going to go through the whole process of wet felting. I'm not showing you particularly how to make anything in particular. This is just about how to sort of paint with the wool tops as the final layer on top of the thing that you're making. So I do have other tutorials on here about how to make a 3D bag or cushion, that kind of thing. So this is really about the final decoration process. Okay, So first things first. So the first thing that is absolutely vital is that you have a good palette of colours of wool tops. If you don't know what wool tops are, unspun wool used for felting and used for spinning mostly, okay? But this is basically the stuff that they spin into yarn. So it's spun and spinning. Did I say spinning? Yeah,
You did.
So it's spun into yarn, obviously usually on a spinning wheel or industrially, okay? But you can see how as I'm twisting it and pulling it and it's like clinging onto itself, it's clever stuff. Well, it's from a sheep. The sheep are the clever ones for growing this wool. This is all merino wool, okay? And we sell it in over 70 different colours. So going back to what I was saying, a good palette of colours is vital if you're going to be doing anything like this. It's impossible to do it with just say 2 or 3 colours. I mean, you can have a good crack, but you know, you're not really going to get the same effect. Okay, that's the most important thing. And I'm going to talk to you about the colour palette that I'm working with today in a minute. And I'm going to talk you through this one as well. Next, I want to talk to you about source material. Okay, so whilst it's absolutely fine to just conjure something up out of your head, I do think it's very, very helpful to have something to work from. Okay, so just as an example, when I was doing this, I actually worked from an old cushion cover that I had at home that I bought many, many years ago that's got some vintage fabric on it. I don't know if, let's just go to the overhead shot actually, and I'm just going to show you this because I think it's quite interesting for you to see. I'm just going to move this out of the way a minute. Okay, can we go to the overhead shot please, my love? There we go. Right, so this is my vintage, it's just a panel of the cushion actually, but this is this vintage fabric that I absolutely love this. And I think I love the colours, and I don't know what it is I love about it, but I love it. And as you can see, or maybe not, that way, as you can see, I've used some of this, not exactly how it is here, to then turn into this, okay? So this, if you go back again, Chris, this is kind of the important bit to have in front of you when you're sort of trying to felt some sort of floral design. You need some sort of inspiration or a source book of something or other. Now, the other thing that I use quite a lot are pictures. And what I want, if any of you have got access to some sort of, I don't know, app, or if you use Photoshop, for example, and you can blur things, that's very helpful as well. So then you could actually use a photograph that you've taken that you like, maybe of some roses or flowers or vase of flowers, whatever. And if you blur it slightly, it will really, really help you turn that into felting, okay? Because you don't want any razor sharp edges. It's impossible to try and recreate that with wet felting. You want everything to seem a little bit blurred, and it will help you process what you need to do, especially if you feel like you aren't particularly arty, or you know you didn't study art and that's not really your thing, but you'd like to have a go at this. What I recommend you do is go onto Google or Pinterest and Google cross stitch rose chart. Okay, now what this does is it'll bring you up something like this, which, as you can see, or maybe not because I'm holding it at quite a distance. Actually, let's look at it under the overhead camera. Can we, Chris, please? What you'll see here is it's split up. It's almost like pixelated into lots of little squares. And this will allow you to really sort of take stock of what it is that you need to get in order to achieve this in wet felting. So it's almost like, if you come back to me a sec, Chris, please. It's almost like you looking at something with your eyes half shut. You know, when you're sort of squinting at something, you can kind of see the bare bones of it, but you can't see it in too much detail. That's what you want. It's almost like we're turning this into a watercolour. We're not doing like a fine photorealistic thing. We want to blur it a bit. So you can either use a photo you've got, eyes half shut, you can use a program like Photoshop or some other graphics program to blur it for you, or you can do this, just get something like this, print it off on your printer. You know, I mean, watch out for copyright and stuff, but obviously you're not going to use this for cross stitch. You're just going to use it to look at in order to do your wet felting. All right, so I've got a few of these printed out here. There's another one, quite useful because you can see, you know, for example, with this one, You'd need some white, you'd need some pink, you'd need some red, you'd need some bright pink, bright red, you know, a yellow, a white, a pale yellow, and then a couple of different colours of the blue here. And then with this one that I was on originally, you know, I mean, you would need, I would say, 3 or 4 different pinks, you'd need 3 or 4 different greens, and then you'd need a couple of yellows and a white to work this. And then you can really see about where to put things, where to lay things down. I've got another one here that's even more sort of pixelated into bigger squares. And again, really helpful. So even if you just like stuck this up on the wall in front of you when you're working, just to keep glancing up at it and referring to it, really useful. Again, so you probably want 3 or 4 different reds and pinks, a white, 3 or 4 different greens. And then obviously a background colour that's going to stand apart from the rose or the bloom that you're making. So you can see that the ones I've got here, I tend to go for like greeny bluey backgrounds if I'm doing reds and pinks on top as the colour of the flowers. So really think about a neutral, and obviously that my original, oops, don't need to just destroy that. The original cushion cover that I'd used here, you know, this very, very pale sort of pepperminty green background, or sort of a sage green. Absolutely perfect. But if you're going to use this, this is our pale yellow olive, which is absolutely one of my all-time favourite colours of our wall tops. I use this a lot. It's in our it's in our vintage vignette kit. That's the background colour of that one there that you get in that kit. Love it. It's like a really soft yellowy green. Very nice. What was I saying? Yeah, so if you're going to use a green as the background, then obviously you need to pick out some different greens to have as your foliage and your stems and that kind of thing that will sort of sit alongside or behind the actual blooms. So really think about your background colours as well. So don't pick a red or a pink is basically what I'm saying if you're doing red and pink flowers. Okay, so there's that. All right. So what I'm going to just talk to you about next is this bag, actually, this little clutch bag. And I'm going to talk to you about the colours that I used from our selection, our vast selection. If you could just go to the overhead for me again, Chris, please. So this one I worked with the Ice Queen as the background colour. Again, one of my favourite colours. I love these turquoisey colours, but this one is really, really lovely. It's just a good sort of midpoint between a turquoise and a sort of peppermint almost. So I've got that ready here to work on to in a minute. But I just want to talk to you about some of the colours here, and let's just look at my original source material alongside that. So I particularly like this little design, I think, because it's got a bit of blue, it's got a bit of green, it's got a bit of red, it's got a bit of white, it's got a bit of yellow, it's got a bit of orange. There's a bit of everything in here. So I've kind of translated that into here, but I didn't want it to look like a rainbow, so I haven't made it too sort of obvious. So where I've used the blues here, I've just got the bluebells here in a sort of, I think it's called hyacinth, I can't quite remember the name of it on our site, and the lavender. Then I've got a few different greens here. I've got a sort of a dark olive green, I've got our Christmassy green, I've got our olive and our bright olive greens going on as the greens. Then I've used a little bit of flamingo, I think, and coral, like the corally colour in the middle of those little tiny flowers. And you can see that's where they came from originally here. And then here I've used the yellow, I've used the gold, I've used a little bit of peach on the gold as well. Here for this flower I've used white, then I've used pale pink, and then this cherry red is really valuable. Use this quite a lot, but it's got a few little dots of the bright red, our bright red on top. And then I've got the salmon pink here as well. So you can see, just from me talking you through this, you can see, and I've actually used another yellow there as well, I can see. I've used really quite a lot of different colours. Let's just talk about my thumbs for a second. Rosie just did some hearts on my thumbs last night. And every time I glance down at them, I sort of think, oh God, have I caught them in the door or something?
It looks like you've hit them with a hammer or something.
Anyway, so that's that. So don't be alarmed. I haven't caught my thumbs in the door. So lots and lots of colours here, and I just want you to be able to see from the source material how I've used this. Okay, let's move on to actually doing something and me showing you how to do it. So what I've prepared is literally just a background of the Ice Queen, okay? And then I've picked out I'm actually going to just use, what am I going to use? I'm just going to use this. Pardon?
You're going to use wool.
I'm definitely going to use wool. I was going to use this one as my kind of example to work from. So I've got these colours together as well. So I'm just going to talk you through these as well. So firstly, pinks. So the ones that I've picked out for this, I have got the pale pink, okay, and then I've got our salmon pink, okay, and then I've also got, I think my eyes have gone funny. I think that's our rose pink, well, it's meant to be anyway, as the main pinks. But I've also just brought along a little bit of our sort of candy pink as well, just to get all options covered on the pinks, okay. Then with the greens, I've got a bit of our Christmas racing green. I can't remember what we call it on the site, and a bit of grass green. I've got a bit of our olive green, and I've got a bit of our citrus green. So I think that covers all the greens, okay. And then with the yellows, I've got the gold, I've got the soft yellow olive, and I've got white. Oh, and I've also got cherry red, because I thought that might be quite important as well. All right. So yeah, quite a few different colours there. Just to, you know, you don't necessarily need to use a lot of all of them, but it's important to just add bits of colour here and there, which will give it depth and make it look more realistic if that's what you're going for. All right, so I'm just going to place this under my mat and just ahead of what we're doing. All right, so if we go to the overhead shot, please, Christopher. Okay, you can see then that am I in the right place? Yes, I think I am. Instagrammers, please shout if you can't see what I'm doing, but I think you probably can. So I've just laid out here a square of the Ice Queen, okay? Really important that you don't pull the wool tops off too thickly. I think I've got lots of videos showing you this, okay? But when you are laying out your backgrounds for these things, you're really pulling off very, very wispy amounts of wool. Let me just lay that over the black there. You can see how wispy that is, okay? So when you're laying this out, just make sure that it will felt together nicely. Now this could be part of your bag, it could be part of your cushion front, or like me, you could just be doing a flat panel that you're going to turn into a little picture. That's it, okay? So we're going to start from the background up. So we're going to, these are like our little finishing touches on the top here. What we're going to start with is the basic background of this. So for that, I'm going to use a mixture of pale pink and white, okay? Now, what's really important here as well is that we use this wool very, very wispily, all right? So we're just going to get the basic shape of this, and we're just going to pull off the fibres really, really finely and just basically get a basic sort of rosy type of shape in the middle here, okay? And then I'm just going to fill in the centre of that just to give us a bit more of a solid colour to work onto. So we're going to work on top of this and keep building it up and keep adding bits onto it to mimic what I've got in front of me here, okay? And to be honest with you, I'll probably do the leaves last. So I'm going to start off just with the main flower to start with. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a little bit of white into that. Not a lot, but maybe just a little bit here and there. And this won't necessarily be seen actually, but I'm just sort of giving myself some options by adding it in, all right? And what I really want to emphasize here is that you really mustn't use too much wool. So we're not pulling the wool off like this. This is no, okay? For those that haven't got the sound on, no. We need a sound effect for that. No. This is what you want. You want something that's really, really wispy, okay? And this is just going to build this up in a very sort of watercolory kind of way, all right? Now, the main colour here, I would say, is probably this one, which is our salmony pink colour. I can't remember what it's called online. I think it's called salmon pink. Should look these up before I come on, shouldn't I? So I can tell you accurately. Yeah, sorry. So I'm just going to now start pulling off much finer pieces, okay? They're still really, really wispy, but I'm just going to, so like, I'm just looking at this area here, for example, okay? I'm just going to start laying that out like that, okay? And then I'm just going to bring this round like this. And I'm just going to add the areas that I think are this colour, all right? But I'm going to maybe add slightly more than you would imagine, just because I want it to be there when I add other colours on top. So I'm just going to sort of fill in what look like other colours, like here for example. I'm just going to make that all this colour, and then I'll add that on top in a minute, okay? So I'm not leaving gaps for the other bits. I'm sort of allowing for it. The only bits that I want to keep without this colour are these much lighter areas. And also bear in mind that you can add more on top afterwards for these lighter areas. So it's not the end of the world if it doesn't work out first time round, okay? Have we got any questions so far, Christopher? Or is,
no.
No, everyone's being very quiet. Do we have some people watching though?
Yeah, there's one or two.
One or two.
All makes it feel worth it.
There's one or two.
It doesn't matter if it's 2 or 2 million, Gillian. There's somebody watching.
Okay, so you can see I've just actually sort of subconsciously I've just added a little bit more of the pale colour in. I don't know why I did that. I wasn't really thinking. Okay, so now I'm just going to bring that round. And all of the time, keep in mind that this is a round bloom, you know, and it has a centre to it. You want to think about the centre of your flower and keep that in mind. Don't just think of it as a completely flat thing, you know. Keep in mind what it is that you're actually doing. And I'm just going to bring some of these bits out like this. But all of the time, I suppose what I want to emphasise to you is that I am pulling off tiny, tiny amounts, right? This is what I'm playing with here. I'm not pulling off great big swathes of it. Okay, now I'm just going to move on to the slightly darker pink, I think. But we want to go easy with this. We don't want to go too crazy with this. So again, really, really small amounts, okay? So really, really tiny, tiny bits like this, all right? Really, really wispy. Okay, and then I'm just going to play around with that a little bit. Just add that in like that, and I'm just going to curl it round, okay? And of course, you know, the other thing to keep in mind all the time is that this is going to look a little bit different once it's wet down as well. So always keep that in mind as well. It's never going to look exactly the same as you've got it when it's dry. Really going very, very easy with this colour though, because it's quite vibrant and I don't want it to sort of completely take over. So you can see I've just got an area in the middle. If you need to do a little blobby, sort of solid blob, just get a tiny bit of wool tops and just bring it around with your heart-shaped thumbs like that, okay? And I'm just going to pop that, just really sort of emphasize the center of the flower there. And of course, in real life, the center of the flower is probably a little bit darker. Let's just look here at this one, okay? This will show us a little bit better on the camera, maybe. You know, how as you're going into the center of the rose, you've got a much darker area in here, okay? And then you've got areas that are darker where the petals are going in, the light isn't quite making it into the inside of the petal. And it's these things that give this all like more of a three-dimensional feel and make them look more realistic once you've done them, okay? All right, so I'm just going to keep in mind that that's the dark area sort of center of my rose. And with that in mind, I'm just going to add in, where is it? A little bit of this cherry red. There's a few key colours that I go back to time and time again that are really invaluable in my opinion. The cherry red is one of them. The soft yellow olive is another one of them. Really useful colours that are very good at sort of highlighting, low lighting. The other one is our very, very acid yellow, which whilst you think might not be in this colour palette and in our original colour palette, you sometimes need just that little highlight, that little boost, and sometimes it's really, really great to just add in a little bit of an acidy yellow over the top of a green, and it just gives it a punch. Can you see how what's happening here now as well? It's just given it a bit of depth, okay? So I do use this colour quite a lot. Look, I've used it here in this rose, it's got it just there, all right? Let's grab the original one back here. So this is the cherry red here that I've used here, and I've used it in the center of that rose there, but also just these tiny spots here in this big white rose, okay? And it just brings you into the center there and just gives you that kind of shading that you need. All right, so really, really important to just use a little bit of that, or a similar colour, like a dark red in the centre there, okay. Then what's interesting here is that we've got the yellow coming in, and obviously the white petals. So I'm going to go back to the white, and really now I'm just adding in some lighter petals that are sitting on top here. I'm going to keep them slightly rounded, okay, because I want it to look like it's a petal coming out. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a little bit of our gold, another really useful colour, and I'm just going to add the tiniest bit around this. So it's almost like it's catching the light, or maybe it's a two-tone rose, I don't know. So just, again, it brings it out, brings it forward, okay. And then I think I'm just going to add a little bit more white at the top, going around at the top here. But again, really, really wispy small bits, remember, not great big bits, okay? And as I'm now putting the white back on top again, can you see how it's just adding in some texture, and it's also adding in the lights and just giving it more depth. That's the word, not texture. It's adding in depth.
There is a request, Gillian, for you to do this in Spanish.
Ah, sí, mon amigo. Oh, crikey.
And there she finished.
The fieltro, sí. Pues opuesto. Sí. Okay, well, maybe another week for that. Do you know what? Every morning I listen, when I'm working out, I listen to crappy Spanish soap operas.
Language, Gillian.
Sorry. They do have subtitles, because I'm still, I'm just trying to sort of, get to grips with it, increase my vocabulary. But once I've finished working out and I've been watching these soap operas, well, or these dramas, should I say, they're not particularly soap operas, they're just sort of quite funny dramas. But then I can launch straight into it. I can really launch into a bit of the old Spanish straight after that. But you've caught me unawares, actually. I would have had something prepared. I'd have had who's asking anyway? Is that somebody we know? Or is it actually somebody Spanish?
It's somebody called Icali.
Oh, it is somebody Spanish. Oh my goodness.
I don't know, yeah.
Well, if you are Spanish, then I really wouldn't recommend me trying to do this in Spanish.
If you turn the sound off on Facebook, I think you get subtitles.
Ah, maybe you can get subtitles. Good idea.
If your language is set to
Spanish.
Spanish.
So can you see how this is now? I'm creating the depth with this by adding the light areas and the dark areas. Let's add a bit of green in now as well. So again, with the greens, I would start with the dark of the leaf. So I would start with this dark area first. And I'm going to maybe use a mixture of these. Another top tip, if you don't have the exact colour that you want, take a bit of one colour and a bit of another colour. Actually, that is the most crappy bit of that. Let me just get a better bit. There we go. So a bit of that, a bit of this. And then you can kind of hand card them together like this. Do you want to go to the close-up, Chris, actually, please? And then I can just show you this a bit better. So just taking two colours together. Let's take some bigger bits. So say we've got this green, okay, and we've got this green. Oops. There are my two different greens, okay. Then if I just keep doing this and just blending them by hand, okay, that's how you do it. You just keep blending, keep blending, keep blending, and eventually you'll get...
That's amazing.
...kind of mixture of the two. All right, back to the other shot, please, Christopher. Right, so I'm just going to show you, maybe starting with a little bit of this one here. I'm just going to bring this round and sort of make a rough sort of leaf shape with a rough... you should never really roll the felt up, roll the wool tops up so that it becomes hard. You should just give it a tiny little twiddle. That's a technical expression.
Is it a technical
yes.
sound? Is it twiddle?
I'm just going to tuck that under there, all right, just as a starting point, okay? Give yourself a starting point and don't give yourself too much of a hard time about this. Really just experiment with what works for you. I'm just going to use a little bit of this, I think this is our mid-olive that we sell. Again, a really lovely, lovely green. I love these olivey greens. If the bit that you pull off is too long, really just pull it in half. You never use the scissors. Always just pull the wool apart, okay? Because if you use scissors, you'll get hard lines, and that is not what we want with felting, okay? So again, just tease this out on top and just use small amounts to get the effect that you're after. So I'm using tiny, tiny, tiny bits of wool here. You might want to just highlight one side of it or low light one side of it, pull that side off, okay? And then I'm just going to add another little slightly lighter bit on this side here using the citrus green, just as an example for you. This is another really useful colour, this citrus green. It's like a real, almost like an acid green. It's not neon, but it's really useful as a colour. So I'm just going to tuck that under there. And can you see how then that just highlights one side of it, okay? And maybe down the side there. So if you look at the picture, you can see there's like a lighter bit at the top there. And that's what I'm doing. But you know, obviously poetic license, you can turn this into your own thing. And you can see that my rose isn't an exact replica of this. I'm just using it as a guide with colours and shapes and how I want things to sit, yeah? And then I'm probably just going to add a little bit more white into here, but I want to leave it quite bloomy. I want to keep it quite sort of voluminous, and I want to keep it quite open, and I don't want to get too bogged down with detail, because I feel like that's when these roses work the best, is when you don't spend too much time faffing about with it and you just give it this kind of overall feel and look. I'm just going to add a tiny bit of the pink. And also, just poetic license here, I'm just going to take a tiny, tiny bit of that acid and a tiny, tiny bit of the gold. And I'm actually just going to pop those into the centre. Not very much of it, just a tiny bit of it, because I want it to look a little bit more like the centre. Okay, so tiny bit there, okay. And then I'm just going to take a little bit, whoops, there as well, okay. And then I want to really make that nice and fibrous, so it's not too kind of, it hasn't got too much detail to it. So that's why this is really helpful, this kind of pixelated, blurred version that you're working from, as opposed to something that's really, really detailed. You know, we're not doing that. It's like you kind of want an overall feel to it, okay? You want an overall vibe. You don't want to get into the finicky details of it, which is great because it's quicker, okay, and it will give you a better result. I mean, if you've got time and you really want to master this, do 3, okay, line them up, and the first one, do it really, really quickly, without a care in the world. Don't worry about it. You can throw it in the bin. It doesn't matter. The next one, spend a little bit more time on it. Maybe half as much time again. Add half as much detail again. And then the last one, try as hard as you can. Felt them all and see which one you like the best at the end.
You could try doing it blindfolded. Yeah? That's an idea.
You could, but yeah. See which one you like at the end and see how it helps to be free with this. I mean, it's probably the same with painting as well. You know, sometimes when you're relaxed and you let go, you can produce better results than when you're really worrying about it. And, oh, have I got that bit straight? And is that bit right? Anyway, all right. I'm not going to do any more of this now, but what I do want to quickly show you.
Shame.
What I do want to quickly show you, actually, maybe I'll just add a stem, because people often ask me about stems.
Yay. I was slow then. I should have gone with.
You were, Christopher. You're not on the ball this morning. Come on.
Sorry.
All right, stems. I mean, you know, with the stem situation, again, keep it. I'm just going to show you this one. Look, stems, leaves, you know, just be free about it. Just these are like just behind the roses, so very much having them on there first. So sometimes I'll lay out a load of stems, lay out some leaves here and there, then do these roses that I've been showing you on top. Okay, and then I've just added in some little polka dots of blue here, and then with the perhaps I should show you quickly how to do the little bluebell actually, because that's quite nice. Let's do a stem and a few little bluebells, okay? But you know, arching stems, keep them quite, don't have them polka straight. Not polka straight, what's the expression?
Poker.
Polka, that's it. Polka dot, polka straight. Don't have them polka straight. Have them, you know, and actually, when you start wet felting anything, it's going to go a bit wibbly wobbly anyway, so that's fine. But what I'm saying is, you don't want things polka straight. You do want them to have a little bit of an organic vibe. Yes.
Soft imagery, as Lynn Harvey says on Facebook.
Absolutely.
Soft imagery.
Soft imagery. All right, so let's just do a little arching bluebell just before I go into how to wet this down and then what might happen. All right. So if we go back to the overhead, please. Por favor, marido y mujer. See, that's man and wife. I know that because on my rubbishy thing I was watching the other day, they got married. Okay, right. So there we have like a sort of an arching bluebell stem. And what I've done there is I've just taken 3 different greens, all right, and I've pulled a bit off, and then just elongate it. Add a few different colours together. Elongate, okay. You don't want it, what you shouldn't do is twist it like this, okay. You need to have it open, okay. And then we're just arching it round like that, okay. Then on here, let's just do some little bluebells. Let's use this and this. So I think this is called cornflower blue, but there's another one, I don't think I've got it on the table, called hyacinth. And then this is what I want, the lavender. So I'm just going to take a little bit of this and a little bit of this, okay, just tiny bits is what we want here, okay. And then I'm literally just going to make them into a little flower, just by rolling it just gently with my special heart thumb. And then I'm just going to have it hanging like this, okay. So again, oh, I've got some bits here. A bit of each, just to give it like a little highlight and a little low light almost. So we're just going to have these hanging along the branch, not the branch, the stem, that's the word. Where's my other bit gone? So a tiny bit of this and a tiny bit of this. Okay. And then just a gentle turning it into a flower, have it hanging down. So that's the kind of effect that you want there, all right? And then obviously just using a tiny bit of this dark, maybe this dark green, just at the bottom of the stem. So think about where the light is. You know, it's going to be a bit darker here at the bottom where the light might not be getting to it. So where the leaf is poking out at the bottom, just above the flower, might be a little bit darker, all right? So that's the kind of thing, all right? So come out a sec, Chris. I'm just going to show you now how to wet this down and what might happen when you wet it down, because the act of pouring water on something does change it inevitably, and you need to be able to understand like how to deal with that if it's not quite what you want when that happens. All right, so if you can go back to the wide overhead, please, Christopher. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to then cover this up with a piece of netting. Let me just move everything out of the way. Cover this up with a piece of netting. As I mentioned before, I do have this in greater detail on YouTube if you want to really look at how you should do this properly. The other thing I would just mention before I start to do this is you can use Angelina obviously in your rose as well. So if you wanted to add, actually let's just grab this one. This one I've got here is called watermelon. Okay, let's just add a tiny little bit of sparkle into it as well. You don't really need very much of this at all, but I'm just going to add a tiny little bit under some of the fibres and just tuck it in so that the fibres cover it up, but you can still see a little bit of a sparkle if you want to. Okay, so covering it up with a piece of netting, I'm just using our mini mat kit here, which we sell, that comes like this. Okay, so if you want a mini mat kit, you get the piece of netting and you get the small bamboo mat. And we also sell a large bamboo mat as well. So that's what I'm using here. The netting goes over the top of the fibres, and then all I'm going to use is some washing up liquid mixed with some lukewarm water. It's very green. Maybe I've put slightly too much in. And I'm just going to sprinkle that over the top here and just show you how to completely wet this down. You then need a dishcloth, and you're just going to hold it down and push the water through the fibres until it's all completely wet through. And obviously the act of doing this is going to slightly move and change what's underneath. But gosh, doesn't that look nice? Through the net, you kind of got that lovely blousy, romantic bloom that we're after, just as I'm wetting it down. So the
blousy?
Blousy.
Blousy?
Yeah.
What's that mean?
Blousy. I sort of mean, it sort of means billowing and sort of, you know, like when you're wearing a big blouse and it's kind of romantically billowing in the wind.
Oh, okay.
I think that's kind of what I mean. Anyone? This washing up liquid smells of apples.
How lovely.
Very odd. Okay, all right, so I'm just going to get that completely wet down. I'm holding it with one hand, I'm using the cloth with the other, and I want to use just enough soapy water until it's completely flat and I've removed all of the air from it. Now you can see that some areas of this have really moved into not quite what I'm after, but actually the way it's dealt with the rose is quite nice because it's made it less kind of rigid and it's made it look more blousy. Where has that word come from this morning? I don't know. So make sure this is all completely wet.
Would you be able to write your name in it?
And that you can completely write your name in it before you move on. I'm just going to make it slightly wetter over here.
You couldn't, could you?
Wait
it
a
wasn't wet
second.
enough.
Wait a second. Oh, you're the expert, aren't you, Christopher?
Hey, I've watched this a couple of times now.
You have. So we're just going to get it to the point where you can, as Christopher says, write your name in it. Ta-da!
Oh.
And
Mrs. Ruth B says, yes, we all know what blouse means.
Oh,
or
okay.
Blousy means.
Blousy.
Overripe
Yeah.
and flamboyant.
Oh, there we are.
Decadent.
Oh, well, thank you for that. Oh, I didn't realise I meant all those things, but yes, absolutely. Right, I'm just going to peel this off now. So make sure it's really soapy before you peel this off. Now, my immediate feeling about this is that obviously the main thing that's screaming at me is that this stem is no longer a stem and it's turned into a branch. And it's just something that's way too fat, okay? And then all my little bluebells have kind of dangled off slightly. So I'm just going to move those back. So what I'm doing here is literally I'm just using the ends of my fingers to just to tease things back. I think the dog's snoring, if you can hear a weird noise in the background. It's not me. I'm just teasing these things back to where I want them. But what I wanted to just show you with the rose is actually that I'm quite happy with that. And I probably wouldn't change much of that. The only thing that I might do now is I might just add on a few bits here and there where I feel like it might benefit from having a little bit more colour. I don't know where, but I would probably just mess about with this a little bit more and just maybe just put a few bits on here and there just to change it slightly or make sure that I'm happy with it. Might just put a tiny bit more of the old red, cherry red, just in
Margaret
the
Johnson on Facebook is saying, is the soapy water hot stroke warm?
No, you want it lukewarm, okay? You don't want any extremes of temperature right at the beginning here because you want to do this very slowly, this part of the process. You want it to felt really slowly so that you're still in control of it and you can alter it and change it at the beginning here. So you don't want, if I poured boiling water on this now, it'd all completely sort of start to felt straight away and I might not have much control over what I can do next. So really lukewarm is the way to go, okay? And once you've got the fibres starting to sort of knit together, then you can move on to really hot and really cold. I suggest, actually I don't like that, I suggest you watch one of my other YouTube tutorials just about exactly about how to do all of that kind of thing. And then that will cover that for you. All right, so this is still a little bit thick actually, but I think I just wanted to explain to you how you can put more bits on, change them, pull bits off that you don't like. So if you decided you didn't like that leaf there, potentially we could move it, okay? And we could put it here or whatever, or we could put it there. You can still lift these fibres up. Actually, I've got it the wrong way around now. You can still lift these fibres up. You can still like move them about actually like this. I'm just gonna make it slightly more leaf shaped. and you stick it back like that, okay, and so on and so forth. And then I could just completely remove this altogether.
Yeah, nobody liked that. Take that away.
How rude.
Oh, no,
We
I
could
loved
turn
it. Put
these
it back.
into little polka dots instead, like this. Any more questions on this before I move on that you can
You're
see?
being, blame the dog. Always blame the dog. Yeah.
Can you hear it? You probably can't hear it. I can just hear a gentle snoring in the background. I can just hear this sort of noise. And she's just literally Sparko on
Well,
the
I am pre-recorded nowadays, so I could be having a little bit of a doze at the back here.
You could. Anyway, you get the general idea, okay? So there's lots you can do once it's wet, okay? And once you're happy with it, then you're going to put the net back over the top and you're going to carry on rubbing this for a good sort of 20 minutes, half an hour. Then you're going to rub the back, and then you're going to do the whole rinsing and rolling process that I do using the bamboo mat. And I'm not going to go through that now. So if you come back to me a sec, Chris, please.
Oh, I was just reading a message from Coco Exempity.
Yes.
Petiti.
Yes.
Says, my dogs,
Yes.
yes. multiple,
Yes.
love your voice. Lol.
In what way?
Who knows?
Are they all snoring as well?
Yeah.
Is this a soporific voice that sends people off to sleep? Quite possibly. I don't know. She's really, really. If I could show you, I would. She's absolutely Sparko, and I've got a big. I've got the crochet rug from my book, obviously. Easy stuff to make with fluff. It's like giant crochet rug, and she's down there. I often actually put it on Instagram before we start, and afterwards I'll photograph her, and I put it on my Instagram stories. Anyway, so that's really all I'm going to be showing you today about that. What I wanted to emphasise was 3 things really. The first thing was that you get some good source material and you find some pictures to give you inspiration and to work from. Okay, let me get my little cushion back here. And it could be a bit of old fabric you've got lying around at home. It could be a cushion you've got. It could be a tablecloth. I used to have an oilcloth tablecloth actually in the studio, and when people came for workshops they would go, oh, I quite like the roses on this tablecloth, I think I'll just do those. So it could be a tablecloth, it could be a picture from the internet that you are just using as inspiration, you're not copying it as such. But really it could be a photograph you've taken of some roses you've been given, it could be anything, but just find some source material to work from. Could be a vase of roses in real life in front of you. If they're sitting there in real life in front of you, squint, blur them with your eyes.
Take your glasses off.
Take your glasses off so you can't see them very well. And
do
just
it blindfolded. Turn the lights off.
No, don't do it blindfolded. But
why not?
Just have that kind of blurred version of the work that you're working from. Second thing, number 2, is to make sure you've got that great palette of colours to work with. Just like you would if you had a watercolour set. The more colours you've got, the better. Or an acrylic set.
Lorraine Howman says, I wish I could buy all 70 colours. Yeah, we wish you'd buy all 70 colours.
Well, get some key ones, okay? We do sell inspiration packs as well, which are quite good. And we also sell starter packs of lots of colours with 50 grams of each in them instead of 100, which is cool. There's cool colours and there's warm colours. Can't quite remember what they're called, but you'll see them on our website. So a good palette to start with, like those. We also sell the 25 gram bags where you don't get much of each, but it's a good way of just actually for doing things like this. If you just need a tiny bit of each colour, that's a way of building up your palette as well. But it's vital. And I always say this about anything that you make, if it's embroidery, stitching, weaving, felting, anything like this, it's so important to have a good palette of colours, and that's why knitters and crocheters and people like that and artists always have a stash, okay? And it's often joked about, but because you've got all of that ready and waiting, it allows you to be so much more creative when you do actually start to work on a piece. So I know it's impossible to get all of the colours sometimes, but get as many as you can, or like you buy one, another friend buys another, go halvesies or whatever. So really good palette of colours is the next thing. And then the final thing that I want to emphasise really is how to use the wool, how to use this wool tops, okay? It's often misused if you're not used to using it regularly. the temptation is to use way more than you need to. I mean, that on the plus side, if you do spend money on buying all the colours, they do really last for a long time if you're just doing stuff like this, because you use so little actually. A bit like you spend sort of 50 quid on a beautiful watercolour set. It lasts for years unless you're painting every single day, obviously. But these things are important to have, but you use very little of all these colours each time when you're using them. So I think, the temptation is to use too much when you're wet felting, and especially when you're doing something so delicate and blousy and sort of bloomy and free. You don't need much. So really watch that. I mean, I do emphasise that on all my YouTube videos, that you really don't need to use very much wool tops when you're doing it. So make sure that you get a handle on that and you get to grips with that, because that's one of the most important things. And then obviously when you're actually wet felting it, make sure it's rubbed enough. That's the other time that people often go wrong and think, I'm done rubbing, I'm off to rinse. Oh, it's fallen apart. So just make sure that you rub it sufficiently as well when you're actually making the felt. But really experiment with this. If you're really into it, as I said before, do a sort of a few alongside each other, or just one long piece where you try different techniques and just try using less wool and being more free about it, and then you'll maybe get the results you want, because I think people find it hard because they get too bogged down with it almost, if that makes sense. Anyway, good luck with that. Do I have any more questions about that, Christoph?
When you, this is Elaine Townsley, when you lay your base down, do you lay the fibres vertically and horizontally in alternate layers? So
what I've laid out here is literally just for a picture, okay? So when I teach my workshops to do a wet felt picture, I always say lay out something as a backing. I'm just trying to think. Here we go. So in this instance, I've used orange as a backing. Okay, it's a colour that might come through to the front a little bit. So use a colour that's going to blend in with what you're doing. All right, and then you lay out one layer one way, and another layer in the other direction. Okay, and then the roses or the flowers or the florals or whatever you're doing goes on top. Okay, so that's for a picture. If you're making a bag or a cushion, you need to go and look at my other YouTube making 3D things. Okay, I've got a couple on here actually, on there. A couple of different videos you can watch.
There's a lot of love for your jumper.
Oh, I'm so pleased. Honestly, it's so gorgeous. Just in case anyone wants to know, it's the Strathcona jumper pattern. So on our website, search Strathcona. It's a digital pattern that's sent to you as a PDF. We work in conjunction with Ravelry, so the designer gets their cut, okay? We actually make hardly any money on it at all, actually, if I'm honest. Very little.
Miss Ruth B
Pence.
said, I knitted the Strathcona jumper this week.
Oh.
Brilliant pattern.
Oh, fantastic.
What a fabulous segue that was, eh?
Yes, well done, Christopher. And it's really a quick knit because it's such big needles and fat yarn. Win-win. So this is knitted in our Malabrigo raster, if you're interested. It's very hard to get at the moment. I am literally tearing my hair out trying to get it. We've got a little bit left on the website, but not a lot. Hopefully more coming. However,
I want a new jumper, Gillian. Gillian, I want a new jumper.
Yes, we know. However, you can also knit this in the Mrs. Moon Plump, which is a super chunky. Comes in all the colours, beautiful colours. Also very, very soft, very beautiful yarn. Recommend. Or if that's slightly over your budget, you can also knit it in the Rico super, super chunky. Also comes in very nice colours. It's half acrylic, half wool, so a little bit cheaper. Also very nice. We've got slightly more of those two yarns than we do of the raster. But I do recommend it. It's a quick knit. It's a lovely pattern. It's quite short, but you could make it longer if you want to. And I love the fact that you can kind of blouse up the sleeves, as you can see.
Blouse up? Is that, have you blousing again?
Why am I using that word so much this morning?
But it's all real wool though, yeah?
This is 100% wool.
Oh.
What was that? Oh my God. Sorry, guys.
I just leant on a button, sorry.
Did you really?
Yeah.
So it's got this lovely turtle neck, which, and this yarn is so soft. Honestly, I'm usually a cashmere scarf girl, but this is very soft. Don't mind it, straight against my neck. Very good. So yeah, beautiful, 100% wool, hand dyed in Uruguay. It's all got this beautiful sort of texture to the colour and so lovely. But also Mrs. Moon and the Rico Super Chunky recommend. We're out of the 15mm needles. They're coming in tomorrow. Okay, so bear with on that if you're after those. Okay, so that's all about my jumper. Now, next week, what day?
Be quick, you're running out of time.
Okay, next week we're going to be doing Mother's Day or spring wreaths. Okay, hang on. I haven't actually got this finished. We're working on it this afternoon. We should have a pack ready for this afternoon or by tomorrow anyway. It's either a round or a heart shape that you can do, and I'm going to be showing you how to do hang on, got the wrong one. Floral pom-poms, okay? So flower shapes in your
floral pom-poms.
Floral pom-poms, plus all other manner of excitement. And I don't know if you can see this. And I'm going to be showing you wool top tassel to make at the bottom of it. Floral pom-poms, and there's going to be lots of other things going on as well. And it's going to be a spring wreath, or it could be for Mother's Day as well, which is on the 14th of March. So join me next Sunday for that. Follow me on social media if you want to know more about that beforehand, because you want to get the kit and the pack to make it with me, because I'm going to be announcing that later, if not tomorrow. Like and follow me please on YouTube if you're watching me on here.
Subscribe,
subscribe, that's
Gillian.
the word. Sorry, I'm really useless at all of this. Like and subscribe, or whatever it is on YouTube, please, because it really helps us earn about 15 pence a month from it.
No. Less than that.
Less than that. And if you're watching it on Facebook, it should sit there interminably as well, forevermore. So you can re-watch it on there. And then I think we put it onto IGTV as well. So it'll just be everywhere. You can re-watch. So enjoy, and hopefully you're all about to go off and make lovely sort of voluminous, romantic florals.
Blousy florals.
Oh, that was the other thing actually. If you want a book, my book about the best book to get probably is Complete Felt Making.
And it's always best to put it right on top of the microphone so
the
nobody
best
can
book
hear
to
you.
get is Complete Felt Making, which will show you the basic process, like we were discussing. You know, what's the temperature of the water, and you know, which way do I lay the wool, and what do I do next. That's all in here if you want one of my books. Okay, if you want to make if you're feeling a bit disappointed because you thought I was going to show you how to make actual 3D flowers, then you want my book Felting Fabulous Flowers, okay, because that completely shows you how to do all of that in there and make actual roses. That's in there.
What actual roses?
Actual roses.
Actual.
And then all other things fluffy related. If you like, if you've got lots of wool tops, is my other book, Easy Stuff to Make with Fluff, okay, which is all sorts in there as well, wet felting included. Okay, I think that's it. I think I'm going now. Because we've now got to convert the studio into a photographic studio and do another shoot, including cakes and all sorts of things going on this afternoon with my daughter. So that's exciting. And I will see you next Sunday at 11 for spring wreaths and floral pom-poms. Bye.
It's Gilliangladrag. It's Gilliangladrag. It's Gilliangladrag Fluff-a-torium. It's Gilliangladrag.